It's everyone's favorite time, every 4 years, the time when we think that our vote matters. The time when we keep hearing, this time it's different. But in reality, it will be 4 more years of the same old, same old. Thank God we can spend billions of dollars on campaigning and advertising. Certainly no better way to help out struggling Americans. But guys, today we are going to be taking a look at the most important election of our lifetime. And 4 years from now, I'll be recycling that title. As a reminder, I don't care who you vote for, as long as you go out and vote. Stop complaining on social media about your life and how it's unfair and how it's because of whoever's in charge, the presidency. What matters is that you go out and you vote and you let your voice be heard. Also, just a reminder, of course, federal elections are very important, but also pay attention to your local elections. Those are actually the ones that are more important for your day-to-day lives, how much you pay in taxes, what they're teaching your kids in schools, where your taxpayer money is going. But guys, today we're going to be focusing on the federal election. Today is November 3rd. The election will be on November 5th. So guys, if you look at the national polls, 2 days before the election is supposed to happen, it is a dead heat, right? This is just some betting odds, but most of the polls that we're looking at have it at 48% for Trump and 48% for Kamala Harris and 2% for the other third parties. That is a dead heat. Now, that may give the sense that the election is super close, but remember, guys, it's not the national popular vote that elects the president. It's the Electoral College. You see, cities that generally vote very liberal are much more populated than rural areas that you see consistently voting Republican. Thus, big cities where a lot of the population is, like New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, Seattle, Philadelphia, so many more, they cause the popular vote to tilt in favor of Democrats. But that's why the Electoral College exists. It almost levels off that advantage to a certain extent. The system awards a certain number of electoral votes to each state based on its representatives in Congress. So that's how many House of Representatives they have. That's going to vary for each state. But then each state also gets 2 senators, so you tack on an additional 2. So the minimum that you can have is 3. And California right now is the largest with 54 electoral votes because they have the largest population. So this could potentially lead to scenarios where the candidate wins the presidency by securing a majority of the electoral votes while losing the overall popular vote. This is actually how Donald Trump became president in 2016. He didn't win the national popular vote. In fact, it's been 20 years since a Republican won the popular vote. It was last done so by George W. Bush in 2004. In fact, in the past 36 years, a Republican candidate has only won the popular vote 2 times. As cities continue to grow in population, had you told me that no Republican would ever win the national vote again in our lifetime, I probably would have believed you. But then 2024 happened, and once Sleepy Joe was forced to pull out after a bad debate showing, among other embarrassments, we inserted middle-class Kamala into the race. And Kamala actually had a huge boom in popularity right when she was announced. You can see here the polls quickly shifted in her favor. Now, one important thing to remember is that Kamala actually didn't win any of the primaries or the delegates as the candidate, since it was Joe Biden running as the actual candidate with her as the VP. This is the first time since 1968 that somebody got the Democratic nomination without winning a single primary. And that didn't go over very well with a lot of people. Some people thought Joe Biden was forced to do this. There's probably a lot of truth into that. Some people thought people's vote was being disenfranchised. So a lot of people, nevertheless, were very excited when Kamala was announced. Someone younger, someone who appeared to be competent. Kamala is a woman. Kamala is of mixed race. She has white ancestry, black ancestry, and Indian heritage. As much as we wish people would vote based on actual merit, people do consider superficial features like race or gender when choosing who to vote for, unfortunately. Then she actually did a very good job during the first debate with Trump, so much so that Trump actually canceled the other one. Though I will give it to him, it is a little bit hard to get a good debate showing when there's biased moderators. Now, Kamala didn't actually give many public interviews. All of her media appearances seemed to be scripted when she started doing more public interviews, people really started to question her policy positions, ones that she often seemed to flip-flop based on when she said it, who she was saying it to, and we can compare that based on her time when she served as a senator for the state of California. She also seemed to really distance herself from Joe Biden despite the fact that they served on the same administration. She went on a sex podcast called Call Her Daddy, where she continued to share the same line that she's from a middle-class family. It's great to see political candidates finally getting to the 21st century and realizing that young people enjoy watching podcasts versus mainstream media. Going forward, I hope we see a lot more political candidates on podcasts. It's a way to get access to a candidate without having a scripted narrative or biased questions. It's a chance to actually have a real conversation and not get cut off due to time. Trump also went on the Joe Rogan podcast. That quickly went viral. So viral that there's talks of it potentially being censored by Google. Though in reality, what I believe happened was that a lot of people actually just flagged the video because they didn't like it, and that caused it to not show up on a lot of search algorithms. That's just my opinion, though. JD Vance and Tim Walz, the VPs, they had a great debate. Most notable was Tim Walz inadvertently saying he became friends with school shooters. Trump then started dressing as a garbage man, as a McDonald's employee, and then like a week later, McDonald's had this huge E. coli breakout. But basically, he dressed up as a garbage man, as a McDonald's employee, to show that he was a blue-collar worker. As if we didn't know that he came from a very rich family and probably never worked a blue-collar job in his life. Now, Harris and Trump odds were tied at the start of the month, but since then, Trump's odds have risen significantly. It only seems like in the last few days has it kind of shifted back into Harris's ballpark, but it's still a super close race. Now, going back to my original point, at Trump and Harris being tied at around 48 apiece, I'd be very nervous if I was the Democrat, because most polls tend to underestimate Republican support. Now, remember this, guys. Pollsters were saying Hillary Clinton had a 99% chance at winning the 2016 election, and we all know how that turned out. They also underestimated Trump's 2020 performance when he just narrowly lost. Had 40,000 votes in just 3 states, Arizona, Georgia, and Wisconsin, flipped to Trump's favor, he would have been the president again in 2020. A similar statistic actually works the same way for Hillary Clinton to win in 2016. So again, guys, as much as you think your vote might not matter, literally just a couple thousand votes will swing this election. Long story short, the election will be super close. So let's take a look at the Electoral College, and I will fill this out state by state. So let's start off with the states that I think are going to be a safe blue. We'll start off with the big state of California. No doubt here that that's going to the Democrats. Kamala will also easily win the state of Washington, as well as Oregon, though I have heard that this race might be a little bit closer than most people think. So maybe let's actually just put this in the likely blue. The governor race here most recently was actually very close. They had a very strong third-party candidate that took away some votes. So I'll just put it in the likely, but that will still easily go for Kamala. I also think New Mexico will be an easy pickup for the Dems. This one is tilting a little bit more into the Republicans area, but I still think it's going to be a couple more years if ever New Mexico flips back to being a red state. So Kamala will easily pick up New Mexico as well. One state that has become a very safe blue state is Colorado. This used to actually be a very strong Republican stronghold, and then this place just had such a big population boom. A lot of the big cities like Colorado Springs, Denver, they all kind of reliably vote Democratic. So she's going to easily win that. All right, shifting over to the East Coast, Kamala will easily win New York. She will easily win Joe Biden's home state of Delaware. She will easily win Maryland. She will easily win New Jersey. She will easily win rest of the kind of the New England area, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. These are all going to be very easy wins. The New England area, northeast part of the United States is very liberal. The New York governor race was actually pretty close last time by, but I don't expect the Republicans to flip New York anytime soon. Okay, now another state that's in New England is New Hampshire. Now this one was actually super close in 2016. Trump barely lost the state by like 4,000 votes. He lost it by a bigger margin in 2020. I don't really see him winning New Hampshire this time by, but I'm just going to put it in the lean blue category. Now, Maine is interesting. It actually splits up its votes by districts. So it's not just a winner take all, which is quite the interesting concept. So Maine's 2nd district will be an easy win for the Republicans, and then the others will be wins for the Democrats. Alrighty, another state that Kamala should win now that her VP is actually from Minnesota is Minnesota. This state actually has been quite competitive in recent elections, despite the fact that no Democrat has lost the state of Minnesota since like 1972. It's like one of the longest streaks, if not the longest, of any state. So despite it continuously voting blue, it is still relatively competitive. Honestly, if Tim Walz wasn't from Minnesota, I could see this one flipping to the Republicans. And then of course, there's the state of Illinois. Man, do a lot of dumb people live here. I will put this in the safe blue category as well. Now, another state that's a little bit interesting, a little bit more competitive than what most people would think is the state of Virginia. This used to be a reliably red state. It started flipping in the 2000s, late 2000s. It started becoming very reliably blue, though it has been competitive. They have a Republican governor now. This isn't one like Colorado where once it went blue, it became a hardcore blue state. There is still a lot of Republicans out here in Virginia, so that's why I'm going to put it in the likely blue. I don't expect Kamala to lose it, though I think it will be a lot more competitive than a lot of people give it credit for. So now we have Democrats at 218 points. They need 270 to win. So let's start putting some Republican states on the map. So we got Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Idaho, Utah. These will all be safe red states. Then we also have Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia. These will all be very safe red states. Then we also have Nebraska is similar to Maine where it splits up its congressional districts. So the district that Omaha is in is actually going to be pretty competitive. There's actually a very wild scenario because of Nebraska split congressional district. There's a chance that the Electoral College could end in a tie. So this might actually be a lot more important than most people think. So its 2nd district will be very competitive. It's probably going to go to the Democrats. So I will put it in the blue category here. But the rest of the state will be a very safe red. Another safe state is the state of Missouri. That will easily go to Donald Trump. And then Trump will also pick up the state of South Carolina quite easily. J.D. Vance's home state of Ohio used to be a very competitive swing state. This is one that the Republicans have been winning very consistently. J.D. Vance certainly helps. I think a lot of races in Ohio will be very competitive this time around. We will give that to the Republicans as well as a likely red. All right, another state that used to be a huge swing state is Florida. This is what Donald Trump, even though he was born and raised in New York, he now claims Florida as his home state. He lives in South Florida. This will be another easy Republican pickup. Trump is very popular in Florida. A lot of people from the New England areas that were Republican now live here, so that's why Florida is now a big win, big pickup for the Republicans there. Now, the state of Texas has 40 electoral votes. This is a state that's rapidly growing in population, and as such, the demographics are rapidly changing, as well as the voting patterns. A lot of people think Texas could be a purple state. That's one that could be a swing state going forward, but I still think for now the Republicans have an advantage here. I will put this in the lean red category. That Senate race with Ted Cruz, there's a serious chance he might lose that one, but I think Texas will still be a safe pickup by Donald Trump. He's probably going to win that by about 5 percentage points. Another state that used to be quite swingy is Iowa, which Trump will also pick up here. It's now moved into the Republican category. He will win that quite easily. Another state that should be an easy pickup for Donald Trump is state of Indiana. So we're now at 216 for Donald Trump, 219 for Kamala Harris. Oh, of course, I also have to give DC an easy Kamala pickup. DC is like the most liberal area in all of the United States. Well, it's like 90% for the liberal candidate. Oh, and I also forgot about Alaska and Hawaii. So Alaska has been a little bit more competitive in most recent elections. I still think it's going to be a likely red. This is one where the metro area is actually very Republican and more of the rural areas are actually more liberal. It's kind of funny how that works. And then Hawaii is one of the most liberal states in the country. So that's how it's looking there. 226 for the Democrats, 219 for the Republicans. And then the rest of the states that I haven't filled out yet, these are the ones that will really make this race competitive. We have the Rust Belt states here of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. They tend to vote together. They used to be known as the Blue Wall because Democrats continuously kept winning them every single election since 1988. And then, of course, in 2016, Donald Trump broke through. He became the first Republican to win those in quite some time. Then we have some southern states here in North Carolina, Georgia that should be very competitive, as well as some southwest states here in Nevada and Arizona, which will also be very competitive. So let's take a closer look at these state by state. We'll first start off with Arizona. So this is a state that Joe Biden barely won in 2020. Arizona, for the longest time, was a very safe red state. But as the Phoenix metro area has continued to grow, more and more people vote there. This is a state that's also very Latino. More and more Latinos are voting Republican. As more and more generations live in the United States, the more they will likely favor strong immigration and border security. But that's not to say that the Democratic Party in Arizona is not very strong either. So Trump currently has like a 2%, 3% lead in most of the polls that I've been seeing. I think Trump will easily win this state. I guess I shouldn't say easily, but of the remaining swing states, I think this is the one that I feel the most comfortable about. I mean, again, guys, Trump barely lost Arizona in 2020. There was certainly a lot of things going on back then. If you remember 2020, it was the COVID year, a lot of people not being able to potentially vote, a lot of vote by mail that probably didn't favor Republicans there. But I think this is the time that this is going to shift back into the Republican category. Donald Trump will be able to flip Arizona back to the Republicans. I have Trump winning by about 3.5 points. Remember, the polls generally tend to underestimate how well Republicans do. And then Trump's popularity in the state of Arizona, it might also be helping Kari Lake in the Senate running. Kari Lake barely lost the governor's election that happened there recently. And hey, if politics don't work out for her, she has a really good career in modeling. So Arizona will go for the Republicans. Then we move on to its bordering state of Nevada. Nevada has been a solid blue state that Trump barely lost in both 2016 and 2020. Trump was dominating the polls this entire year, guys. I'm somebody who watches the polls like a hawk, even when it's not election season. So Trump had been winning basically the entire year. He's at a 1.2% lead in this poll. Honestly, I'd tack on an extra couple percentage points there. Nevada has a lot of Latino voters. Some of the major issues in Nevada include cost of living, jobs, immigration. Prior to the 21st century, Nevada was a very reliable red state, but of course the Las Vegas metro area has had a huge population boom, and it's become much more competitive for the Democrats. That's why they've been able to win so many elections there. But Nevada's governor is now a Republican. He won the most recent election, so that could be a sign that this could be a red state going forward. I have Donald Trump winning this state as well. This will be the first time in 20 years that the Silver State will vote for the Republicans. Donald Trump takes this state by about 2%. All right, let's move to the South in Georgia. So Georgia is another state that's been reliably red in the deep South. Biden, again, barely won this state in 2020. It was another super close state. So that's, again, guys, if you don't think your vote matters, it really could matter, especially if you live in some of these swing states where elections are being decided by just a few thousand, potentially a couple hundred votes. Georgia statewide now has 2 Democratic senators because the best candidate that the Republicans could pull is a Herschel Walker. Guys, this was a former football legend whose own son came out and said don't vote for him. Georgia has a lot of black voters. Black voters reliably vote Democratic. And if you think Kamala being partially black would help her out, it's not exactly doing that. Blacks are actually moving at a high speed to the Republican Party, especially males. Males overall are moving way more conservative, while women, especially young women, are moving much more liberal. That's certainly an interesting trend, and when the vote might be decided by just a few thousand votes like it's been in the past 2 elections in Georgia, having potentially a lot of black voters move to the Republican Party is going to hurt the Democratic Party. Trump currently has about a 2.3% lead in Georgia. This is another one that I feel very comfortable that he will win. I think he'll win by about 4 percentage points. So Arizona and Georgia, I think, will be easy wins for Donald Trump. Nevada will be a little bit closer, but I still expect him to pick that up. All right, then we move to North Carolina. This is the only swing state that Trump actually didn't lose in either 2016 or 2020. Lots of rural areas in North Carolina. North Carolina, of course, home to NASCAR country. Did you know that you could bet on elections these days? I don't know why, but that's kind of funny. Anyway, guys, North Carolina did vote for Barack Obama in 2008. That was actually a pretty surprise win. I'd be shocked if they support Kamala the same way, though. Right now, she's not as popular as Barack was in 2008. She's losing right now in the polls by about 1.5 percentage points. I think that's a pretty correct margin of victory. I think Trump will be able to win the state of North Carolina by about 1.5%. So I will put this again in the leans category for the Republicans. So Trump is now at 268 votes. Remember, guys, you need 270 to win, and he's almost there as long as he can pick up one of the Rust Belt states. So this is where it gets very interesting. Donald Trump essentially needs to win one of the Rust Belt states to win the presidency. If Donald Trump wins even one of these, it's going to be very hard for Kamala to win in any of these other swing states or her to win the overall presidency, guys. So the state of Wisconsin, this is where we get into the blue wall. There's a lot of electoral votes here, and this is where Democrats have done so well in the past. And this is why so much campaigning happens here, because the Rust Belt is so crucial for this election. Lots of working class people here, and I think I'm going to shock a lot of people here, but I actually think this will be the first time the blue wall will be split. This means that one of the 3 states will vote differently from the others. Again, guys, the margins are just so close. You imagine what people have been through these last couple of years. Constant political ads, constant campaigning. It's going to eventually crack. So Kamala Harris just retook the lead here in this dead heat with Donald Trump. She's winning by 0.3%, guys. That is insane. You can see kind of throughout the year how people's favorability has happened. Trump took the lead kind of in the last couple weeks, but Harris seems to be pulling right back above when it matters most. These states are really hard to predict, but just because Trump is doing so well in the national polls, it's safe to say that Wisconsin, Trump is also still quite popular there. So he barely lost the state in 2020, won it in 2016. The polls barely give it to Kamala. I already know I can probably tack on a +1 or +2 for Republicans there. So that's why I'm going to give Wisconsin to Donald Trump as well. This will be a lean red state. So now Trump has 278, which would be enough to win the presidency. But let's just go through the last 2 states, because again, this is all arbitrary. This could all easily flip. And then we're going to go into Michigan. This is a very hard state to predict. This is one that has a very large Arab population. Why do I mention that? It's because a lot of people have had problems with how the Biden administration has handled the whole Israel-Palestine conflict. Again, guys, I'm using kind of code words here because YouTube censors certain words if I use them. So a lot of people kind of view that as almost a genocide. So again, that's going to be very unpopular with how a lot of the large Arab population in Michigan. But this is one that Kamala's starting to pull away from a little bit in the polls. She has 0.5 percentage point win here. Honestly, I could see a world where Trump wins each of these different swing states, but part of me also thinks that Kamala could pull it off in Michigan. So this is why I'm actually going to give her, personally give her the win in Michigan, just because I don't see Trump winning every swing state. Again, I could be wrong. So now the Democrats are at 241, and then we get into the very important state of Pennsylvania. There is no other state that is more important than Pennsylvania this election. If Trump wins Pennsylvania, it makes it so hard for Kamala to win by winning any of the remaining swing states. That's why they've been having so many rallies, campaigns, political ads pumping into Pennsylvania. This is another state that actually most of the year has been looking good for Donald Trump. He now has a 0.3% lead here. Joe Biden spent a lot of time in Scranton, Pennsylvania. He did have that hometown advantage in 2020. So Trump won the state in 2016, but Joe Biden won it by a decent margin in 2020. This is another state, though, that I think the Trump and the Republicans will flip. Trump will win this state by a razor small margin. I'm going to guess he'll have a margin of victory of 1%. So guys, that's my final 2024 predictions. Of course, this is just a prediction. The only thing that matters is you go out and you vote. This could look very different. I was very wrong in 2020 and 2016, as a lot of pollsters were. So who knows what I'm saying will be right. Make sure you let me know in the comments who you think will win in the election. Thank you to all my Patreons, and I'll catch you on the next one.